Hi guys, we're back. This is the Math-172 review for Test 2 brought to you by the ILC. These problems are in your lab manual under the heading Unit 2, Extra Practice. Number 9a gives us secant cubed x minus tangent squared x times secant x. All right. I remember there's an identity that has to do with tangent squared and secant squared. And I can see that this is actually secant x times secant squared x minus secant x times tangent squared x. So we can take out secant as a common factor. So that gives us secant x times secant squared x minus tangent squared x. All right, so we know that secant squared is tangent squared plus 1. So this gives us secant x times, I'm going to expand this out, to tangent squared x plus 1 minus tangent squared x. Tangent squared minus tangent squared cancels out. So I'm left with secant x times 1, which is just secant x. This is the answer to 9a. 9b. So again, we're trying to simplify. We have 1 minus tangent squared x plus 2 all over secant squared x. All right, the first thing we do here is find the common denominator. So it'll be secant squared. So then I multiply top and bottom by secant squared. So that gives us secant squared x minus parentheses tangent squared x plus 2 over secant squared x. Be careful with these negative signs, guys, because this negative applies here and here. And we're going to use the same identity that we did on problem 9a. This secant squared we can expand for it to be tangent squared plus 1. So we've got tangent squared x plus 1 minus tangent squared x minus 2 all over secant squared x. So this is nice because this positive tangent squared minus tangent squared gives us 0. And so this is 1 minus 2, which is negative 1 over secant squared x. So guys, at this point you might think you're done. But if it is at all possible, you want to flip everything to be in terms of sines and cosines. So this is going to be negative 1 over cosine squared x. Oh, well this is just negative cosine squared x. Here's our answer to 9b. Moving right along. Problem 9c says simplify cosine x over secant x plus tangent x. Okay, so I'm going to try and unpack my denominator here. So we've got cosine x over 1 over cosine x plus sine x over cosine x. So it looks like we've got a common denominator going on here anyway. So we've got cosine x divided by 1 plus sine x all over cosine x. So again, we're going to take this denominator fraction, flip it, and multiply. So flip and multiply. So that's cosine over 1 plus sine x. So cosine x times cosine x gives us cosine squared x over 1 plus sine x. Cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared x. Okay? But this is the difference of perfect squares. So it can be factored into 1 plus sine x times 1 minus sine x all over 1 plus sine x. And this factor cancels. So problem 9c simplifies to 1 minus sine x. Just to save a little bit of room, we're going to start problem 9d here. And we'll use a different pen. We'll use red pen. 9d says, simplify sine u secant u over cotangent u. So the very first thing I'm going to do is try and unpack things. So this is sine u times 1 over cosine u all over cosine u over sine u. Oh, what a mess. So sine u over cosine u over cosine u over sine u. Glory. So we're going to, again, use the taco method. Outsides product over insides product. And we get sine squared divided by cosine squared. And we get tangent squared u. And that's the answer to 9D.